We take a closer look at India today and the state of the country's information ecosystem. First, we have traditional media, journalists and newsrooms. And these institutions are under attack by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his government. They do not like criticism. Neither does any government, but India is meant to be the world's largest democracy and a place that is supposed to welcome freedom of the press. Yet, most recently, police raided homes of journalists working for NewsClick, a popular online news website that reports on the failures and shortcomings of the Modi government. Officers confiscated computers and phones and said the raids were part of an anti-terror investigation. But journalists from across the political spectrum have come together and denounced the government's action. So that is the state of the mainstream media. The other half of India's information ecosystem is about what happens on social media, online. A recent investigation by the Washington Post examined how Hindu nationalists under Modi have been using social media to advance their ideology and cement their power, writing, quote, "They have perfected the spread of inflammatory, often false, and bigoted material on an industrial scale, earning both envy and condemnation beyond India's borders." For more, joining us in the studio is DW's Michelle Stockman. Michelle, can you tell us more about this Washington Post investigation? What do they mean when they talk about social media being harnessed by the government?
Well, right now, the Indian government is led by the ruling BJP party, which is a Hindu nationalist party, which basically wants to make India into a Hindu-first state, even though on paper it's a secular democracy. And so it's using social media to promote that agenda. And what that looks like is basically disinformation that's sent out saying, talking about politics of fear, that basically India's Hindu majority is in danger and will be safer if there's a BJP-led government in office. And also that disinformation is largely targeting Muslims and other minorities and people who are critical of the government, like journalists or civil society members. And WhatsApp is a major platform that is used to spread this disinformation. And I spoke to the Washington Post Daily bureau chief, Jerry Shih, and he spoke to me about what this operation looks like on WhatsApp to get this disinformation out. And he spoke about one state election where the BJP had just 150,000, I shouldn't say just, it had 150,000 people on just WhatsApp. And also they are working with third parties, quietly, trolls that might be creating this disinformation. But to understand how this can be spread so far and so fast, let's hear what he has to say. And there were audio problems with it, so I put subtitles on. But sorry, Jerry, but here you go. Let's listen to what you had to say.
So the insiders of the party tell me that when they send out a message into, let's say, 10, 20, 30 different WhatsApp groups that they're about, almost instantly, there are people inside of these groups that will then copy and paste it and forward it on to another sort of 10, 20, 30, 40 groups of their own. And so very quickly, they expect whatever message they put out to be able to reach hundreds of thousands of people in 10 minutes or so. There has been this ongoing effort to automate the process because, you know, how much easier would it be if you could just with one sort of click spread any message you want in this private sort of encrypted channel. There is no accountability for what you say. There are no fact checkers to hold you, you know, oh, is this right? Is this wrong? Is this divisive? Is this inappropriate? Just within a few clicks, you can spread any message you want. And
so if that's the case, is big tech doing anything about this?
You would think so, but India is a huge market for them. 500 million WhatsApp users. There are more Facebook users in India than the entire population of the United States. And so the Indian government has a lot of leverage to pressure these US-owned social media companies to either take down content that they don't like or to keep up content they like.
Can you give us a specific example? Because I think we're talking patterns and abstract here, but give us a specific example of what you're talking about.
One thing that the Washington Post brought up was this phenomenon of cow vigilante streamers. And so the cow is sacred in Hinduism. And so there are groups of young men, sometimes women too, ad hoc groups that go around and try and find drivers who are transporting cattle, which they think is disrespectful to the animal. And they will stream these hunts, basically, on platforms like Facebook and YouTube. And these become and have become violent. And this is live stream. It's really action-packed. And actually, YouTube awarded one of these cow vigilante streamers a silver award, which means he got 100,000 subscribers, and really had a lot of violent content. In fact, one instance where a Muslim man, who largely are these cattle transporters, he died the day after he was attacked by this group from internal injuries. So it's rewarding. Actually, these social media companies are rewarding violent content.
You know, these social media companies like Meta, they make a big deal about how they're trying to tackle disinformation. It doesn't look like they're doing so in India.
Yeah, it's a big question. And Washington Post also talked about another example where in Kashmir, India-administered Kashmir, there were fake accounts that were created that were distributing disinformation and also praising the Indian government for its crackdown there, and also targeting Kashmiri journalists as separatists and for sedition. And so there actually is a unit inside Meta, which owns Facebook, and they are searching for propaganda. And they found this unit in India. They identified it. They said, we don't think this is a group that should be on the platform. They notified Meta Indian executives in India who said, no, we are not touching this. We are not taking it down because this is affiliated with the government, and we could even be implicated for treason. Wow. So there's internal divisions within Facebook about how to handle this. And also, I mean, Meta has said that it denies that it has bowed to pressure from the Indian government. But in 2019, it did commission an independent investigation about its human rights record after there were whistleblower testimonies and negative media attention. They found that there were, in fact, cases where Facebook did not act when there was hate speech or calls to action before violent communal violence in India that turned deadly. But what has happened to that report? That's still a question. I actually spoke to the senior counsel of a digital rights organization who told me what happened to that report. So let's listen to what he had to say.
Instead, in India, they suppressed that report. They actually have actively said that they will never make the report public, even when Meta shareholders have called for resolutions asking for this human rights report to be made available. And Meta is hidden behind the excuse of saying, we believe the report findings will place our staff in India at risk. And they've used that as a blanket excuse to not make that information available. So we don't know even right now the mistakes Meta itself has committed, which it knows about, and what sort of active steps it's taking. And in fact, you seem to be seeing a global trend where Meta is slowly trying to override its institutional checks and balances or mechanisms meant to protect individuals or to protect human rights in favor of better government relations. It seems to indicate that Meta is now prioritizing government relations and its political future in the mind of its executives, rather than protecting individuals, protecting vulnerable communities, and defending human rights.
What's really tricky about this situation is that usually if big tech is problematic, a government might step in to try to regulate it or try to make it accountable. But here you have a situation where the government is the problem.
Right. The government is showing that it wants to be in charge of the conversation. It wants to direct the social media agenda. And it also wants to be in control of who should be silenced. And there's examples, you know, in 2021, the government the Delhi police raided Twitter's office there over a tweet that was labeled as manipulative media. And that was tweeted out by a BJP politician. So individuals need to be aware. We all, not just in India, we all need to be aware of what's coming at us. And Washington Post is doing more, so watch out for more of the series to come.
Michelle Stockman, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.